And so at this time, I'd ask you to welcome our guest speaker for this month, Mr. Tom Monaghan.
I was brought up very, very poor. My dad died when I was 4 years old. He was a truck driver. He had health problems with his ulcers, and he died at the age of 29. And I spent most of my childhood in foster homes and a good part of it in a Catholic orphanage with Polish sisters from the old country. And that's where I got my faith, for which I'm forever thankful. I got out of the orphanage when I was 12 years old, and I went to northern Michigan and worked on farms and foster farms. And when I got out of school, I was on my own, and I went to college for a while but didn't have any money, and I joined the Marine Corps. And I spent 3 years in the Marine Corps. I saved most of the money I made in the Marine Corps to go to college when I got out. But just before I got out, I hitchhiking back to the base, and an oil man picked me up, and he talked me into my 3 years savings. And it was an investment that was too good to be true, and it turned out to be a total loss for me. So I got out of the Marine Corps at the age of 22, broke, still a freshman in college, and tried to go to school, but didn't have the money. Ended up having the opportunity to buy a pizza place called Domino's. It was a very small, humble place. It was open for 3 months, and it closed because it didn't have any business. There was a hole in the wall, and my brother and I bought it with $500 down payment. We didn't have the $500, but we borrowed it from a credit union, and that's how we got started in what has become today Domino's Pizza. The name of the store was not called Domino's, it was called Dominick's, because that was the name of the previous owner. And we made every mistake in the book. And the idea was this pizza place was going to pay my way through college. My brother was going to work half a night, and I was going to work half a night. And just before we were to open, after we signed the papers, my brother chickened out and wouldn't give up his job as a mailman. He wouldn't give up the security, so I ended up running the thing full time, and I had given up my jobs, and so there I was stuck in the pizza business for 38 years. After about 6 months, my brother wanted out, so I didn't have any money, so I gave him our Volkswagen delivery car for 50% of the business. And at the time, he got the better end of that deal. Over time, after making a lot of mistakes and doing everything wrong, I finally learned how to run a pizza store. And my first store became the busiest pizzeria in the United States, in the world, in fact. And it was focused on delivery. It was the first one in the United States to totally focus on delivery, and probably the hardest part of the fast food industry. Well, at one point, after we got going, we had to come up with a new name because there were too many Dominick's pizzas. So one day a driver came back from a delivery, and he says, "I got our new name." I said, "What's that?" "Domino's." I said, "That's it." It sounded something like Dominick's. It was Italian, which was a requirement, and there wasn't a common name. And so we had 2 other stores at that time under different names, so we decided to name all of them Domino's and use a Domino logo, a Domino symbol as the logo, and have 3 dots on it, 1 for each store. And every time we added a store, we'd add another dot. Of course, that was kind of stupid because today Domino's has over 9,000 stores. There'd be a lot of dots on that Domino. Well, and then one day, after our ups and downs, we had a lawsuit from Domino Sugar over the name. That took 5 years. We lost that lawsuit in court. We appealed, we won the appeal. And then after 20 years of being in the business, going through ups and downs, living basically like a pauper, making very little money, spending much of that time living in house trailers, driving old cars, wearing old clothes, finally took off. In 1980 to 1990, Domino's was the fastest growing restaurant chain in the history of the world. By the end of the 80s, we had over 5,000 stores. In 1 year, 1985, we opened 954 stores. That was the most stores ever opened by any restaurant chain in history. It broke an old KFC record of about 820 stores. And Domino's became had 54% of all the pizzas delivered in the United States, the 7th largest restaurant chain in the world, the largest privately held restaurant chain in the world, and we had sold more pizzas than anybody in the United States, even Pizza Hut. They sold more totally because they had more stores overseas. In 1983, I had the opportunity, a lifetime dream, of buying the Detroit Tigers, and that was quite an experience. Sparky Anderson was our manager, the Hall of Fame manager. After I met him the first time, I said, "Sparky, you know, when I was a kid in the orphanage, I used to play shortstop on the orphanage team, and I always dreamed that when I grew up, I'd play shortstop for the Detroit Tigers." And Sparky says, "I love my mother, but she ain't going to pitch for me." I said, "Sparky, I'm 48 years old. I don't think I'm going to be playing shortstop for the Detroit Tigers." And then in the very first year, we won the World Series in 1984. We had a great year. So that was very fortunate because I paid a lot of money for the Tigers, and I was a little worried about going into debt so much, but it worked out real well winning the World Series the first year. A lot of people said you were lucky winning the World Series the first year. I says, I don't see what's so lucky about it. When Sparky came to the Tigers as manager, he said, "We're going to win the World Series in 5 years. I just bought the team after the 4th year." And then when things were going pretty well for me, I was well known around Michigan and in many respects around the country. It was one of the leaders in the restaurant industry. I won every award I know of out there. I was named Entrepreneur of the Decade. I received a lot of honorary degrees. I was asked to be on a lot of boards of a lot of universities, and I was living pretty high for a kid who was brought up as poor as I was. I had a whole fleet of jets and airplanes and helicopters and yachts. Even they had a 173-foot tall ship built in 1899. I built a big lodge in Drummond Island in northern Lake Huron with a championship golf course. I had one of the finest car collections in the world. Paid $8.1 million for one car, a Bugatti Royale. So I was living high on the hog, and one day I picked up a book by C.S. Lewis called Mere Christianity, and it had a chapter in that book on pride. Now, pride's the greatest of all sins, as you know if you've taken your catechism. And that chapter hit me right between the eye, because I realized that all these material things that I was striving for and obtaining were so empty, so meaningless. Just trying to impress people, showing off. And I hated a show-off. And so I gave up all those ostentatious luxuries. I sold the airplanes, I sold the yachts, even got rid of my beloved Detroit Tigers, and the lodge, and the car collection, and everything else. And I try to make my life more focused on things that are important. And that's where I come to the 1998, after doing a lot of thinking, and decided to sell Domino's. And when I gave the interview to the Detroit Free Press after they announced the sale, and this was in 1998, he said, "What you going to do now that you've out of Domino's? You've been there 38 years. Your life's going to be empty." I said, "No, it's not. I'm going to start the world's finest Catholic university." And he says, "Not even you have enough money for that." I said, "I know, but I got enough money to get it started." and get it off to a good start. And then when people see how good it is, they'll support it. And that's exactly what happened. And so the headlines of the Detroit Free Press the next day were, "I plan to die broke." Because I told the reporter, I said, "I can't take it with me anyhow, it's not my money." And so a lot of people called me up and wrote to me suggesting how I might, they might help me go broke. So we started, we had the opportunity to start a university from scratch. Now I was on the board of 6 universities and colleges, so I saw a lot wrong in higher education. It's not like it was when your fathers and your grandfathers went to school. Higher education has become very, very deteriorated. The average high school student of 30 years ago was better educated than the average college graduate today. It's gotten that bad. Schools have become primarily party schools. Professors are encouraged to pass people whether they learn or not. So if they don't show up for class or they don't do their homework, they still get a C in most cases. It's very hard to, you have to be pretty bad to flunk out of college nowadays. A C of 30 years ago is an A today in most schools. So I wanted to design a school where the students got their money's worth. A student where they did have to study, and not easy, silly courses that are important to their lives and to their careers and to their soul. So it was a rare opportunity to be able to start with a blank sheet of paper. First of all, where are you going to put the school? Where's the best place in the country to put a new school? And particularly a Catholic school. And 90% of the Catholic schools in this country are in areas where it gets cold in the wintertime. And most of them were started before air conditioning was even invented. Yet Florida is probably now the 3rd largest state in the country, and there's even some people say that it eventually be the largest state in the country, surpassing California and Texas. And the most dynamic area of Florida is Southwest Florida, Naples area. In fact, it has the highest average net worth of any community in the United States, and it has outstanding weather, and that's one of the reasons it's so popular. So I decided that's the best place to put the school, to attract students from all over the country, to attract the best faculty from all over the country, even to attract the best athletes from all over the country. And we even built a town, a whole new town called Ave Maria. That's about 10 miles outside of Naples. And we put in our own water treatment plants, our own wells, our own roads, the whole thing. We did it all ourselves. And so to design a town that was designed to support an outstanding university. And yet we're close enough to Naples and the beaches and all those other things. So we tried to create a Catholic university utopia. And that's exactly what we've done. The most important thing of all is the faith. We're first and foremost, we want to help people get to heaven. 75% of kids from Catholic homes stop going to church when they leave school, or leave home to go to school. 75% stop. That doesn't happen at Ave Maria. Not that we force them, but 97% of our kids go to Mass every Sunday, and more than half of them go to Mass every day. So it's a unique kind of school. There are no co-ed dorms. There's no visitation from in the opposite sex in the dorms, and we think that's very important at that age when the hormones are running wild. I remember myself when I was that age. So that's a little bit about Ave Maria. I welcome you to come visit Ave Maria, and particularly in another month or two when it gets real cold here. And if I left any time, I'll take questions if we have time for questions. Thank you.